Hi there, Scott Rendall, and today we had a client call us. She has a new fabric, some upholstery she's getting with this kind of fabric, and she wanted to know whether it's going to be able to be cleaned or not. And that's a very smart move on the client's part, because some of the things that are out there today are either very difficult to clean or just not cleanable at all. A small percentage are not cleanable at all, but some other styles we have to be very careful with it. So what we like to do is a test to find out what the material is made of, and based on that we can use the appropriate strength products to match up with that particular fabric. So what we do is we first of all take our little pliers here, we clamp it onto the fabric. Now this is a piece that she says we can keep. You don't want to cut off of your piece of fabric that you're going to be using. This is a swatch. And just take your scissors and cut off a little section of it. That should be a good size. And already I can tell that it looks like a blend because there's different shades of color in here. There's a little bit darker and then there's a lighter color that's shinier. So there's looks like there's two different materials in there. So next what I'm going to do is do a burn test. And that's where we take this fabric and just simply burn it. What I'm looking for is the smoke, the flame, and ultimately the bead or whatever's left behind. So I'm going to blow it out. You want to do this, protect the table that you're over, or the carpeting if you're over that. So I have this little table right here, or this little paper. And as we can see, I'm going to let it cool just a little. There was a black flame, and there's a black soot and almost a bead to it. And what I'm doing also is evaluating the odor. It kind of smells like fruity charred meat, which is a very unusual odor. Sweet, yet almost like barbecue. And now, hopefully it's cooled enough to touch, and it is. I can tell that this bead is crusty, but it's also coming apart. It's crumbling on me. So I'm going to look at it and evaluate the char. And I can tell that this is a blend of acrylic because of the odor, and probably polyester because of the black oil, almost plastic bead that it's created behind. So the acrylic is what's actually crumbling off of there, and the polyester is that bead, that black hardened plastic there. And based on that test, that tells me if it's an acrylic polyester. The acrylic, we'd have to also do a water test. So I'm going to do a water test and I'll be right back and show you how we do that. After the burn test, we're going to do a moisture test, and we're going to take the product that we think would be the most effective yet the safest. And in this case, it's our Rendall certified spot cleaner. And what I'm going to do, I've got this larger swatch, so it's probably a good idea to use a bigger swatch to see what colors transfer or if it changes color. And what I'm going to do is, normally on spot cleaning, I'll put it on the product on the towel, and then I'll wipe it on here. For testing purposes though, it's okay to get a little bit aggressive just to make sure that the fabric can handle it. Because if there's deep inset stains on a sofa, sometimes we do have to get a little more aggressive than just spraying out a product onto a towel and then wiping it. We have to use an extraction system, throw a bunch of moisture in it and pull it right back out. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just take my sprayer and spray it pretty heavily and just let it soak in for a moment. And I'll let that sit there for a good 5 minutes. And we'll see what happens in 5 minutes. It's been over 5 minutes since we did the water test, and I'm just evaluating the piece of upholstery swatch that we put the cleaning product on, the one that would probably be the strongest that we'd want to use on a fabric like this. And we can definitely tell it looks fine. It didn't change colors or turn brown. We will let this completely dry. It's almost dry to the touch right now. And I would suspect that we probably would have seen some kind of trauma to it by now if it was going to react to a cleaning agent. What's really interesting is this fabric, and this is not uncommon, This fabric actually has an S code right here, cleaning code S, and that means solvent. There's 3 different codes. It's actually 4 if you count the X code. There's W, which means water. That means you can use a water-based cleaning solution on it. There's S, which means solvent or dry. You don't want to use anything with water on it, so a dry solvent. There's WS, which means you can use either water or a dry solvent. And then there's an X code, which means that they don't recommend cleaning it professionally or with water or solvents. So basically, they only want you to vacuum an X code, which could be a problem if you have pets or if you have spills and things on your upholstery. That said, we found that more oftentimes than not, the cleaning code is inaccurate. This is an acrylic. There's no pattern on this acrylic whatsoever, and the polyester is obviously going to be water soluble. The only questionable thing is the acrylic water soluble? Because acrylic could be painted on there with a pattern. In this case, there is no pattern. It's just a solid color. It's got 2 different slightly different shades of colors on here, but it is water soluble. So in this particular case, again, the S code is inaccurate and it should be a W, but we believe, and we can't prove this, but we believe that the manufacturers put this code on here to cover themselves, because if you go out and buy something that might be really strong, let's say you put a 40 volume peroxide on here, which is technically a W code, you could end up pulling some of the acrylic color off of there. This is probably lightly shaded to a color, or maybe bleach or something. And in that case, they probably would want to cover themselves by putting an S code. There are some W codes out there. Most of the time we're going to see the manufacturer lean towards the S code rather than the W code. So that means to me that there's some chance, possibly, of messing this up with a water-based solution if you don't know what you're getting into with the chemistry. And the way they cover themselves is to put that S code on there. So just because it says S does not mean that we have to use a solvent. Here's the kicker. Most soils are going to be water-based. Pet spills or pet urine, spills from food, all that is water-based. And as we remember from basic chemistry lessons, whenever you add a dry solvent to water, so an oil with water, they separate. The water climbs up to the top and the oil separates at the bottom. The same thing happens when we clean. If we were to use a solvent-based cleaner on on any fabric really, but if we were to use a solvent-based cleaner on water-based soils, we're going to get a repelling effect, which doesn't help us clean at all. So we try not to use solvents. Plus, you know, whenever we talk about dry solvents, they're usually made of petroleum products, which are not good to breathe. Some people have an adverse reaction on their skin. And so therefore we stay 99% primarily to the W, the wet cleaning system. There are some safe ones out there, but that's a different discussion. And for this particular discussion, just know that this tag does not really tell us anything. That this S code does not mean it can't be water-based or water cleaned. So just keep that in mind. Some people, you know, I've been to a manufacturing plant before where they make furniture down in North Carolina. I'm not going to implicate the name, but it was very apparent. There was olefin fabric. They had olefin stacks of fabric, bolts and bolts of this, and they were just putting this furniture together. If you know anything about fabrics, olefin is made of oil, so it's completely oil-based. They melt the color inside of it. Yet every single one of those hundreds of pieces of furniture that was being made that particular week, all of them had an S code. And I asked the manager, you know, well, first of all, I asked the worker, why is there an S code on here? He says, I don't know, that's what the manager put in front of us. Just stacks of these S code tags. And then I asked the manager, I said, yeah, the other guy over there says that you just gave him a whole stack of S codes, but he doesn't know why. And he goes, well, you know, we just do what we're told. And I assume that means that his boss told him just put S code on everything. And so from a cleaning standpoint, that does not help us determine the cleanability, and this should be used more as a guide for the consumer, that S code, instead of the professional. The professional should always test it and determine what the fabric's actually made of, and then do a water test if necessary to ensure that it's safe. In this case, we determined that it is mostly polyester and acrylic, and I just thumbed over to the back page here where it actually tells us what's in there. 52% polyester and 48% acrylic. Now, I didn't look at that before I did this burn test. I didn't even realize that all this information was there. I just went ahead and snipped it and did a burn test, and then determined from that burn test that it was acrylic and polyester. So there you have it. That's a little bit about tags, S codes, the different fibers that can and can't be cleaned with water-based solutions. And the outtake for you is never trust the tag. Always trust what the professional, after they've done a test, what the professional advises. Thanks.